The front end layer. In this lesson, I'm going to cover the front end layer, what exactly it is, and what all technologies are used to build it. So what is the front end layer? It is the layer that interacts with your customers. So if you are building the front end in the form of a web application, it is a website that the users will interact with using their browser. Or if it is a mobile application that you are building, you can build it in native code, like in the case of Android or iPhone, and the customers would download the app on their mobile device and would start using it. There are two ways by which you can build the front end. They are depicted in this diagram. The first one is hosting the entire code on the client side. So if you are building your front end code using, say, JavaScript, you can build a set of JavaScript files that can be entirely hosted on the client side, on the client browser, and there's no code for the UI on your server side in this case. And there are lots of JavaScript frameworks out there, for example AngularJS or React, using which you can build your UI. You can also build the UI in traditional ways by hosting the UI code on the server side. For example, you can use tools like Spring Boot or Spring MVC, and you can write your UI logic in the form of Java server pages. The code is then rendered as HTML on the browser when the user asks for the code by hitting a URL that actually comes to your server hosting your code. In this slide, I have covered the first 2 points already, but let me go to the third point, which talks about the performance of the front end code. If the front end code is very slow, your website is slow, and people do not like to interact with slow websites. So this is a very key point if you are interviewing for a system design position, for a software position that is in which you are expected to code a lot on the front end. There is a high possibility you are going to be asked questions on performance as well for your front end in your system design interview. Also, if you are interviewing for a front end position, there is a high possibility that even in system design interviews, you might be asked to write code regarding your front end. So if you have mentioned in your resume that you have worked a lot on Spring MVC using Java programming language, you might be expected to write some code in Java using Spring MVC to build some kind of a UI. Or if you mention Node.js, you might be expected to write some code in Node.js. So it totally depends upon the technologies you have mentioned and the position you are interviewing for. Now, scaling the front end as well as improving its performance. There are some key concepts and techniques using which you can improve the performance of your front end. First of all, if you are using any sort of framework, just follow the best practices laid out by the framework. For example, if you are using a framework like AngularJS, it takes care of a lot of boilerplate code for you. Just use the traditional way that is depicted by AngularJS to write their front end. So apart from that, there are other ways to improve performance. For example, caching is one way. So if there is static content in your UI, images as well as text that doesn't change at all, cache it. You can cache the content in different ways. Browsers cache it on the browser side. You can cache the content on the server side in some sort of external cache and render it. So all these ways where the code is cached in memory and you're not hitting the database, you're not hitting the disk, this is very fast to render, and this will improve the overall performance of your website. Replication is another way to improve the performance. So if you have a lot of content that is read-only, you can just keep multiple copies of it on different servers. This way the content can be rendered from different servers. You can place a load balancer in front of your servers, and it can route the request to servers that have less load, and thereby the requests are nicely distributed, and the system not only scales very well, but the performance also improves a lot. CDN is a very important concept. I'm going to cover it in the next slide. They are used to improve the performance of your front end as well. Cookies are very important to improve the performance of your website. They also help in scaling your website as well. Cookies are a natural way of storing content on the client side. There is a size limit of around 4 KB for which you can save the content in a cookie. There are lots of websites. For example, eBay uses cookies a lot, only for a few pages. For example, Screen Wizard, where you can place an order on eBay, they use sessions, but for most of the screens they use cookies. So there is a very nice talk on eBay, eBay's architecture. I'm sharing the link for it in the reference section. You can refer to it. But in general, cookies help you in writing stateless services. So if you're having server-side UI or front-end logic, you can definitely use cookies to store a lot of content that you would otherwise store on the session side. CDNs are content delivery networks. The idea behind CDNs is very simple. Basically, you store static content on it and you keep the content closer to the end users. So if you have a customer that is trying to access your website from India, and instead of keeping the content for the website in US, you can keep the content for the website in Singapore, because Singapore is closer to the customer. So the network, the traffic doesn't have to travel for a far away distance, and the website would render much fast. References, these are the references you can refer to regarding the front end. And the site highscalability.com has some very good articles about improving your front end code for better performance and scalability. Thank you.